Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the market and product track. Um, yeah, looks like some more people have made it in here. Well done. Welcome. Hi. So next up, we have Ishveen Anand, and she's going to talk to us about the best practices on working with athletes and fitness influencers as well, one that I'm really, really looking forward to. Ishveen, do you want to bring yourself up on stage? And we'll get the talk started as I know we're running a few minutes late. Hi, Ishveen.
Hey, how's it going?
Perfect. Good, thanks. Okay, so I'm going to let Ishveen take over and enjoy the talk, everyone, and see you soon. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Great to meet everyone. I'm just going to try and pull up. Great. Cool, wonderful. So I hope you can all see my screen. I should say brand open sponsorship partnership ideas. Essentially, welcome. My name is Ishveen Anand. I'm the CEO and founder of Open Sponsorship. Quick background, I grew up in Manchester, studied at Oxford. I was a student athlete all my life. I became a management consultant. Like many people, I just followed the track that I thought I was supposed to be on, and then realized that my big passion was actually sports. And, I wasn't satisfied just playing it, but I also wanted to kind of work in the industry. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to do one crazy thing, why not do two? So I actually moved to India in 2009 and became a sports agent. Fell in love with sponsorship as a form of marketing. I just thought it was so cool how you could leverage the power of sports to essentially grow your brand. Fast forward many years, I was doing that well, but I always thought, I was really interested in the digital side of things. And also I was really kind of intrigued as to the deal making process and how difficult it was, which we'll kind of cover a little bit. And so fast forward, I kind of had this idea of why is it not an Airbnb for our industry? And went out to create it. And so today, I think we've been around about 5 years. We're the largest marketplace for sponsorship, sports sponsorship. So we connect essentially athletes to brands for what looks very similar to an influencer marketing campaign. So we definitely do things with appearances or photo shoots, but a lot of what we do is digital. So lots of learnings to kind of share with you guys. I feel like I can only see my screen, so I can't really see if anyone has any questions. But once we finish the presentation, I'll be sure to come back to the other screen and see if there are any questions. But essentially what I wanted to cover today was, I think a lot of people, when they think about influencer marketing, they understand okay, my brand, it's a growing brand. I want to leverage the power of someone else, as a, it's almost like the digital version of word of mouth, but what do I do? How do I start? And then also, how do I maximize the ROI? And that's kind of the bits that I'm going to touch upon today, where, what we really wanted to show is there's a lot of different ways to use obviously specifically athletes for us, but influencers. It's not just can they post on social media. And I think when people fall down that trap of, hey, I'm just going to get this influencer to post about my product on social, they usually feel like it's very underwhelming and the results are not really there to justify the cost. And so what we do at Open Sponsorship is really try and understand, well, who are you as a brand and what do you do outside of influencer in all of your other marketing channels? And then how can you insert the influencer or the athlete into that? So, today when you think about your marketing, when you think about PR, for example, PR is just, it's a way to amplify everything else that you're doing. If you raise a new round of funding, you use PR to amplify it. If you bring on a new executive, you might use PR to amplify it. So the same way is when you think about athletes or influencers, where you'd say, what is everything else that I'm doing? What are all my other business initiatives, not just marketing, but business initiatives? How can I get athletes to really emphasize that? And so, quick fact here, brand awareness engagement. Obviously, I'm releasing a new brand. How can I use an athlete to grow that? E-commerce sales. Today it's Amazon Prime Day. So, if you guys are selling on Prime, then how could I have got athletes to push those prime sales, increase store traffic, obviously a moot point at the moment, but let's say you open a new shop or you've got a pop-up store, or you do something kind of offline. How can I use influencers to drive traffic to my store? Product launches, every time you launch a new product, you want to try and create a bit of an oomph around it. How do I get athletes or influencers to do that? Maybe it's CSR initiatives. We just worked on a campaign recently where one of the big initiatives that they were thinking about is recruitment. I know that every company kind of struggles with like bringing on the best talent. Would using athletes to promote how great a company you are and how great your founding team is, would that help to drive your recruitment initiatives? And then improving ROI of all your other marketing channels. So, Facebook ads is working for you, great. Can I bring in an influencer, do what, some sort of like boosting and whitelisting through them to really understand, like, actually, is my ad performing well, or is there another benchmark that I can kind of use? So it's not just about saying, all right, who's the right influencer? Let me pay them and let them post on social. It's really about thinking about your business, and then how do influencers kind of amplify everything else that you're doing. So a couple of facts about us. We have 6,000 now. Actually, it's a bit old, but we have over 7,000 athletes. We cover 160 sports, 20% female, and these are the kind of statistics that we think about when presenting, because we want to do things with more than just our male athletes and sports endemic brands. So again, when you're thinking about using influencers, let's not just stay in our lane. It's obvious that, at the beginning, if you're a food company, you might go to celebrity chefs or people who post about cooking. But every athlete, obviously I'll focus on the athlete side. Every athlete is also thinking about what they put in their body. How do they eat healthy? How do they count their calories? So if you're a food company, athletes make sense. Let's say you're a pet brand. Of course, like your first crop of influencers may be people with pet accounts or those IG channels that all they do is post about pets. But celebrities have dogs, athletes have dogs or cats or whatever it may be. So how can you extend just your own small niche of influencers and go beyond that? And those are some of the best partnerships that other people aren't doing. Their channels aren't oversaturated with all of your competitors. When we think about the kind of deals that we're doing, we often get asked this question: should I be doing short-term campaigns or should I do year-round brand ambassador programs? Now, of course, budget is a big factor within that. But I would say that a lot of people today, the way that we advise brands is, why don't you come in and do lots of short-term, see what works, and then dive into the athletes, the influencers that did work, and turn them into long-term ambassadors. The same way that when you release a Facebook campaign, marketing campaign, you might do lots of small campaigns, A/B test them, and then the one that works, you put a bigger budget in. Same way that we think about athletes or influencers. Now, having said that, you may want to be launching a new product and you want to come out with a bang, right? You want everyone talking about it. Your website launch is the biggest thing that's going to happen. And then maybe it does make sense to just go straight off the bat. Let's pick a face of my company. Let's put all my eggs in that basket and let's use data to back out the right decision. But let's not do the small testing, getting it right and wrong first. And then a couple of reasons why, open sponsorship, that what we've done well, and I think, similar for a lot of influencer platforms, is I think we make it really affordable. When you think about working with an agency, you almost have to cross a certain spend threshold to make it worthwhile. So if you want to do things on the low end, you either do your own thing, like I'm going to DM lots of influencers, I'm going to do this very non-scalable activity, or you can use a platform like ours where you can scale but affordably. Time. Obviously, when you use technology, whatever it may be, booking flights, looking for houses, we basically save you time. So again, a big thing there is like, we're all very busy. If we can save, a few hours a day, not having to go back and forth in terms of negotiating with an influencer, then why not? That's time is money. And then ROI, tracking, like having all the tracking in one place, I'd say is a big, big, big plus. So like now that I would say like a big 70%, I'd say, of our deals, the brand is coming in and they're just like, they're looking for brand awareness. They're looking for engagement. They're looking for the influencer to start a conversation that they can be part of. So, we've got some really cool examples here of, what works. So giveaways and competitions, of course, that works because, you know, you've got the influencer essentially incentivizing their fan base to, you know, hey, to win a year's supply worth of Mother Dirt, comment here, tag a friend who you believe needs this product, go and follow this page. So giveaways and competitions are a great way to incentivize action, and also to make sure that like you are truly getting engagement on your posts. So I really like those. Another way to think about brand awareness engagement is like the challenges. You know, some of the best challenges that we've seen, like the ice bucket challenge, they actually have all started with a brand, whether it's a foundation or a charity. The makeup challenge, the fashion challenge, whatever it may be. So, you know, how can your brand think of a challenge that could go viral, that is also, you know, authentic to who you are? Whether it's, if it's food, then maybe it's a how quickly can you eat something, or you know, your cooking recipes or whatever else. I think like in today's time, you know, we wrote Instagram takeovers. I'd say that's already old. I'd say like Reels are the new thing, TikTok's the new thing, or whatever else it may be. But you know, what you're really trying to think about is like, where do your customers live? What are they interacting with? And how do you insert yourself there? So obviously Instagram is one of the biggest challenge channels when you think about social media. So Instagram takeovers, like how can you have an athlete take over your channel for the day? Well, that's great, but you know, that means they have to promote it in advance, get people coming to your channel, following you. So really, when we think about brand awareness and engagement, it's which are the channels where your customers live, and then how can you create really engaging activations using the influencer to incentivize action. Second, e-commerce sales. We feel like there's a natural evolution for brands where they start off and they think about brand awareness, and then they move into sales. Like, great, I've spent this money, I've got this engagement, but it needs to affect my, you know, my top and bottom line. And that's when we think about e-commerce sales. It's tough to do. Influencers don't naturally just drive sales, but there are some kind of tactics that you can use to try and make that happen. So, you know, there's the organic side of things. How can you get an influencer to actually drive sales? Well, stories are better than feed posts because you can do like a swipe up with a UTM link. TikTok has introduced like in-app purchases as for a brand. So there's a lot that you can do within within the campaign to get athletes or influencers to drive activity to your website. Even Facebook shopping today. But what I would actually emphasize is our second point about boosting and whitelisting. This is actually what we have seen been the most effective way to drive sales using influencer. So you're essentially taking the content from the athlete and you're inserting it into your own paid ads. And if possible, one thing that we love to do is, I know I touched upon it earlier, is for you to whitelist the channel of the athlete or the influencer, and actually put paid media dollars behind that channel, which basically means like, you know, if I'm on Instagram, when I'm scrolling through, I may see ads coming from your channel, and that's great, but sometimes you start tuning them out. I'm now going to see ads for you, but coming from the influencer's handle. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but sometimes I'm like, oh, who's this person? Do I even follow them? Like, oh, that's so cool that they're promoting another brand. So we have found it to be deeply effective. And when people come to us, when brands come to us and they talk about like generating sales, I'd say whitelisting is the one thing that we really like promote and push them to do. It's driving store traffic. And this doesn't have to just be store traffic. It could be, you know, we've worked with spin studios, and it's like, how do we get more seats into, you know, spin classes? It could be, hey, I'm doing an activation and I just want people to turn up. Maybe you've invested tons of money into a Christmas fair or Christmas activation, and it's a week long. How can we use influencers to drive traffic to that offline experience? So, you know, retailtainment. A great example is, let's have the influencer be there and interact. Hey, come and meet your favorite influencer at this experience. Obviously, that really works if you can get the right kind of person that will be genuinely interesting to your customers. Or maybe it's co-branded product lines or something that's interesting, you know, for the influencer as well as for you. Like, hey, can we launch at this experiential event something that's to do with this influencer? Usually these are bigger partnerships. You see them a lot with like Rihanna and Sephora, but there's no reason why you can't do it with a local person on a less expensive level, because it's also really cool to them. We've seen Amazon, for example, create literally stores for celebrities and athletes to promote their favorite items, and they're getting affiliate sales. So, this co-branded product line is a great example of creating a line with an athlete or an influencer where they're essentially being benefited by affiliate sales, but also it helps you acquire new customers. Supporting a product launch. We talk about global, domestic, you could talk about local or whatever else. I mean, one of the reasons that we love athletes is, obviously we're based in America. So outside of New York and LA, the most influential person in any market is usually the athlete. Why, they live in Chicago or Pittsburgh or Philadelphia because they play for that team. Otherwise, if they had that kind of spending power, money, and fame, they would probably move to New York and LA, which happens with all other industries. So when you think about a product launch, it could be super specific and local, very targeted and niche, or it could be global. Either which way, we think influencers really work for this, because at the end of the day, what's better than someone else saying that this product, in this case, for example, in these pictures, tastes good, or your product works or fits or smells nice? And then a couple of tips on this. If you're going with a big product launch, then great, big name. But if you don't have a big budget and you're trying to think, well, who do I pick? I love to look for influencers who comment back. There's nothing worse for me than seeing a brand pay an influencer, and people are responding being like, oh, does it actually work, or does it really taste that good? And silence. No response from the influencer to say yes, which, that just one word yes could incentivize them to go and, buy this product or choose it. So little tip there for when I'm thinking about micro. But then obviously if you're thinking about a macro influencer, it's just really about how big is their reach and how much overlap is their audience to the kind of audience that you're going after. So for example, this was Popeyes, and they were launching a new chicken sandwich focused on Chicago. So they came to us and we got them 2 NBA, 2 NFL, 2 MLB athletes, all in Chicago, to just create as much noise as possible and get as many different audiences seeing this kind of content. This is really trending for us at the moment. I kind of touched upon it earlier. CSR initiatives, employee engagement, community involvement. In America especially, we've seen like a big move for like the Black Lives Matter moment, or across the world, we're seeing brands embracing the fact that they could help to educate their customers or future customers about COVID and staying safe. Well, influence is a great way to get that message across authentically and also in an interesting way. So, on the right-hand side, you can see there's this video that one of our athletes created for Texas government to promote staying at home or wearing a mask, keeping distant. And so when you guys think about your brand and like the messages you want to portray, that you're inclusive, that you're diverse, that you give back, whatever it may be, could you think of the right influencer to help you bring that message home? So, athletes, if it's diversity, or, maybe it's like Paralympians, if you're thinking about being inclusive, or maybe you can find someone who has a foundation that resonates with who you want to give money to. So I really think like athletes or influencers are a great way to bring home like all that other stuff that you're doing behind the scenes, but you need to, obviously you're doing it for the right reasons, but you do want people to talk about it. Well, influencers could help promote that. And they also feel good aligning with a brand who's got great messaging. Integrated marketing campaigns. Kind of bringing together a lot of what we've already discussed, but saying you don't just have to do one. The beauty of working with, for us athletes, is that, yes, they may have a strong social media following, but their stories are interesting. So let's create content from them. They are really powerful PR people. So, if you have a PR agency, could you use your influencer and maybe include in your deal, hey, we're going to get you 5 minutes of an interview with a journalist to talk about this. I'm a CEO founder, but I know that journalists all day long would prefer to talk to my athletes than can I use the athletes to bring home the messaging about open sponsorship? So when we think about integrated, it's about kind of going back to what I was saying, what are all the different ways that you today are marketing yourselves or that you're selling? And how can we get the athlete or the influencer inserting themselves across all of them? Affiliate marketing, like I was talking about, like, can you create influencers into affiliates? Or email marketing? I'm sure all of us do a lot of email marketing because it's cheap, but can we get an influencer content to be in the subject line? Check out how this, athlete sleeps at night if you're a mattress company. And, that will drive increased open rates, click-through rates, engagement on your emails. And then I think reporting. I think that's like a really big part of like any marketing journey. You kind of want to come back. If you're the CEO, you care because you're spending the money. If you're a team member, then you inevitably need to report back to a senior team member. So we get this question a lot, like, how do we judge success from our influencer spend? What should we track? And there's a lot of different things that you could track, but some of the key things that we think about are obviously social media, and that's because that's like the primary way that most people are using influencers. So, likes, comments, engagements. If you're doing stories and impressions, maybe click-through rates. If you're doing LinkedIn, then maybe it's shares or relevant comments. So there's a lot on social that's worth tracking. The next funnel down would be like, how did it convert to your actual website? So did it drive traffic? We, for example, integrate into our brand's Google Analytics to try and track that. Shopify as well is another great one where, you can track from the start to the finish. Facebook is, as I mentioned, doing a lot of it itself. So how did it translate off social into my website? And then, of course, the last one is sales. And I would say when you start out, you should move in this direction. Let's first focus on making it successful on social, because if no one's engaging with the content, then we're not getting any traffic and we're definitely not getting any sales. So let's first cross one rather than trying to track too many things at the beginning. So I always advise, like, unless you're spending, at least 5 figures and like decent 5 figures, your only metrics that you should be really looking at are social media metrics. It's too tough for it to convert into sales if you're not spending too much. And then that's kind of it. So I'd love to stop there and stop my sharing so I can actually see the screen. And see if you guys have any questions, or happy to dive into any other aspects of the influencer lifecycle.
Hi, Ishveen. That was great. Thank you so much. We'll just give it a little minute and see if anybody has any questions. Yeah, we've got one that's come in already. I don't know if you can see that, but it says, are there any products or services you'd say are absolutely incompatible with fitness influencers?
That's a good question. I'd say, well, the way that we're a two-sided marketplace, so you think of us a bit like Match.com, where, if you wanted to go for have a one-night stand, you could go to a dating service. And if you wanted to get married, you'd go to a dating service. So it's about having like the right person on the other side. And so I'm sure that we have products that our athletes don't want to promote. I mean, we had a tough time. We've had like hair regeneration services, for example, or like, very personal, like femtech products. And honestly, then it really comes down to budget, because the other day, I think I was watching, like a super famous cricketer was promoting, I think it was like Shane Warne or someone was promoting like a hair regeneration service, and he was paid enough. So it wasn't like it wasn't authentic to the athlete. It's just the fact that like it has to be enough for me to kind of get out there and tell my story. So is there anything that's incompatible? Like obviously maybe like drugs, but having said that, like there are athletes out there that would say like, hey, I'm a good time guy, and when I'm not training, I'm like everyone else, and I might take drugs or, whatever, I smoke cigars or whatever else. So I think it's more about, it comes more about, for you to get the athlete to tell that story, some brands, some product services may have to pay more than others where it's way more authentic.
Thank you so much. Great answer. I think now what we're going to do is everybody's going to move back into the main room. We've got a panel event going on in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close down this presentation. Everybody can move from here back into the restructure and sustainability panel. So if you remember how to do it, just sort of scroll to the bottom of the platform and you'll see those two blue images. Just click on the one restructure, you can double click and that will take you in there. You've probably got about 5 minutes just to like take a little water break or whatever you fancy, and the panel event will be kicking off at 6:15, so about 5 minutes time. Thank you again so much, Ishveen, and everybody enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks now.